The alarm bells rang through the survey ship Starwind as Lieutenant Commander Alex Carter stared at his screen in disbelief. He had been mapping empty space for 3 months, and his job was usually boring. Today was different. His sensors had picked up something that should not exist. "Captain Vasquez to the bridge," Alex called into his communicator. His voice shook slightly as he double-checked his readings. The numbers were still the same. Something big was out there in the dark nebula, and it was giving off energy signals. Captain Maria Vasquez arrived on the bridge within minutes. She was a tough woman who had spent 20 years exploring the outer edges of known space. Behind her walked the ship's science officer, a tall blue-skinned Xanthari named Kess, and the communications expert, a green-scaled vegan called Roth. "What do you have for me, Carter?" Maria asked as she looked at the main screen. "Ma'am, I'm reading active power signatures from grid section 77 Alpha. The computer says it's a ship, but that's impossible. Nothing lives out here. This nebula has been empty for thousands of years." Kess moved to another console and began running his own scans. His large black eyes widened as the data came through. "The human is correct, Captain. There is indeed a vessel. It appears to be very old, but somehow still functional." Danny Rogers, one of the 3 other humans on the mixed species crew, walked onto the bridge carrying a cup of coffee. He was the ship's engineer, a friendly man from Ohio who always seemed calm no matter what happened. "What's all the excitement about?" "We found a ghost ship," Alex replied, pointing at the screen. "Look at these readings. It's been drifting out there for who knows how long, but it's still got power." Lisa Park, the ship's medic and the only other human besides Alex, Danny, and Jake Morrison, joined them. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who missed nothing. "A ghost ship? That sounds dangerous. What if it's some kind of trap?" Maria considered this. The outer rim was full of dangers that could kill an entire crew. Pirates, automated defense, systems from dead civilizations, and worse things that nobody talked about. But she was also curious. In 20 years of exploration, she had never found anything like this. "Set course for the contact," she ordered. "But keep our shields up and weapons ready. If this thing so much as twitches wrong, we're out of here." The Starwind changed direction and began moving through the thick dust clouds of the Kepler Nebula. The journey took 6 hours. As they got closer, their sensors began picking up more details about the mysterious ship. Jake Morrison, the expedition's expert on dead civilizations, came to the bridge as soon as he heard about the discovery. He was a quiet man who spent most of his time reading about ancient cultures and lost technologies. When he saw the sensor data, his face went pale. "Captain, this is incredible," Jake said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Look at the size of that thing. It's over 2 kilometers long. That makes it bigger than anything in our current fleet." On the main screen, the ancient ship slowly came into view. It was enormous, with a dark hull that seemed to absorb light. The metal was covered in scars and burn marks that told the story of countless battles. Strange symbols were carved deep into the armor plating, symbols that none of the alien crew members recognized, but the humans did. "My God," Danny whispered, dropping his coffee cup. It shattered on the floor, but he didn't notice. "Those are Earth symbols. That's English writing." Alex leaned forward in his chair. "That's impossible. Earth ships never made it this far out. We didn't even have faster-than-light travel when our ancestors left the homeworld." Lisa was studying the markings through the ship's telescopes. "The writing is very old. It's in a style I've only seen in museums. This ship is ancient, maybe from before the Great Exodus." The Great Exodus was when humanity had first left Earth to spread across the galaxy. That was over 8,000 years ago. Back then, humans had been a small, weak species with basic technology. They had been refugees, not warriors. Jake was running the symbols through the ship's computer. I'm getting a translation. The name on the hull says UES Retribution. UES means United Earthship, but that doesn't make sense. United Earth never had a space navy. Captain Vasquez ordered the ship to move closer. As they approached, they could see that the ancient vessel was not completely dead. Lights flickered along its hull, and energy readings showed that some systems were still working after all these thousands of years. How is that possible? Kes asked. No ship can maintain power for that long without a crew. Roth, the vegan communications officer, suddenly straightened up at his station. Captain, I'm receiving a signal from the vessel. It's very weak, but it's definitely trying to communicate. Put it on speakers, Maria ordered. The bridge filled with static. Then a voice came through. It was speaking in ancient English, a language that only the humans could understand. The voice was mechanical, clearly from a computer, but there was something almost alive about it. Unknown vessel. Identify yourself. State your business in this sector. Be warned that this area is under the protection of the United Earth Space Command. The alien crew members looked at the humans in confusion. Danny translated what they had heard. It's asking who we are. And it says this space belongs to something called United Earth Space Command. Maria felt a chill run down her spine. United Earth Space Command hasn't existed for 8,000 years. How can this ship still think it's on duty? Jake was studying his historical records. Captain, according to everything I know about human history, we never had warships like this. When our people left Earth, they were in colony ships and refugee vessels. We were running away from something, not fighting it. The ancient ship sent another message. This time, the computer voice sounded more urgent. Scans indicate human life signs aboard your vessel. Humans respond immediately. I have been waiting for relief forces for 8,237 years. The enemy is still out there. Alex looked at his captain. Ma'am, what do we do? This thing thinks we're some kind of military rescue mission. Before Maria could answer, every alarm on the Starwind began screaming at once. Roth's console lit up with incoming contacts. Captain, multiple ships are approaching through hyperspace. Configuration unknown, but they're big and moving fast. On the main screen, dark shapes began emerging from the swirling colors of hyperspace. They were sleek and black, seeming to absorb light just like the ancient human ship. But these vessels felt different. Where the old warship felt protective, these new arrivals felt hungry and dangerous. The voice from the ancient ship came again, but now it sounded almost excited. Confirmed. Devourer-class vessels detected. Beginning combat operations. All human vessels, prepare for battle. The enemy has found us again. The ancient warship's lights suddenly blazed to life. Weapons that had been dark for centuries began powering up. The massive vessels started moving, turning to face the approaching enemy with the smooth grace of a predator that had finally found its prey. Captain, Vasquez realized that her small survey ship had just stumbled into something far bigger and more dangerous than a simple ghost ship. They had found a guardian that had been fighting alone in the dark for thousands of years, waiting for the day when humanity would return to continue an ancient war that no one remembered. Captain Maria Vasquez had to make a choice fast. The ancient warship was preparing for battle against enemies that nobody on her crew had ever seen before. Her small survey vessel was caught in the middle, and those dark ships coming through. Hyperspace looked like trouble. All stations, red alert, she ordered. Get us out of here now. But before her pilot could change course, the ancient ship sent another message. The computer voice was calm despite the approaching danger. Galactic. Survey vessel Starwind. You will maintain position. Human crew members are required for emergency boarding procedures. The ship's protocols demand human authorization for full combat systems. Alex Carter looked up from his sensor station. Captain, how does it know our ship's name? And how does it know we have humans aboard? Jake Morrison was studying the readings from the ancient vessel. Its scanners are incredibly advanced, much better than anything we have. It probably knows everything about us by now. The dark enemy ships were getting closer. Maria could see them clearly on the main screen now. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of predatory fish. Each one was about half the size of the ancient warship, but there were dozens of them. Danny Rogers spoke up from the engineering station. Captain, that old ship is asking for volunteers to go aboard. Maybe we should do it. If those black ships are hostile, we're going to need all the help we can get. Kess, the Xanthari science officer, turned his large black eyes toward the captain. This is unwise. We know nothing about either the old vessel or these approaching ships. We should retreat and call for military support. Roth, the vegan communications expert, was listening to transmissions from the enemy fleet. Captain, I'm picking up some kind of signal from the dark ships. It's not in any language I recognize. The patterns are strange, almost like machine code. The ancient warship was moving now, positioning itself between the Starwind and the approaching enemy. Its weapons were charging up, creating a low humming sound that they could hear even through the vacuum of space. Boarding party required immediately, the computer voice said again. Human crew members Alex Carter, Danny Rogers, Lisa Park, and Jake Morrison report to Airlock 7 for emergency transfer. Time remaining until enemy contact. 12 minutes. Lisa Park, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. It knows all our names. How is that possible? It scanned our ship's computer, Jake explained. Our personnel files, our mission reports, everything. This AI is more advanced than anything I've ever heard of. Maria made her decision. Carter, Rogers, Park, Morrison, suit up and get over there. Find out what that ship needs and help it if you can. The rest of us will monitor from here and be ready to provide support. The 4 humans quickly went to the equipment room and put on their spacesuits. The ancient warship extended a docking tube that connected perfectly with their airlock, as if it had been designed specifically for their ship dot as they entered the old vessel. Emergency lighting came on to guide them through the corridors. The halls were wide and tall, built for humans, but much more spacious than modern ships. The walls were covered with symbols and writing in ancient English. Welcome aboard the UES Retribution, the computer voice said as they walked deeper into the ship. I am a PEX, Advanced Protection and Execution System. I have been the guardian of this vessel for 8,237 years. Ganny looked around in amazement. This place is incredible. Look at the size of these corridors, and everything still works after all this time. They followed the lighting to what appeared to be the command center. It was a massive room with dozens of control stations and a huge view screen that showed the approaching enemy ships. In the center was a command chair that looked like it had been built for someone very important. Please take your positions, Apex said. The enemy will arrive in 8 minutes. I require human authorization to activate full combat protocols. Alex sat down at what looked like a weapons control station. As soon as he touched the controls, information began flowing into his mind. Somehow, the ship was teaching him how to use systems that had been built thousands of years before he was born. Lisa found herself at a medical station that was more advanced than anything in their century. The computer was showing her readouts on the ship's automated repair systems and crew support functions. Jake was drawn to a station covered with historical data. As he accessed the files, his face went pale. Guys, you need to see this. This ship has been fighting continuously for over 8,000 years. It's destroyed thousands of enemy vessels. Danny was at the engineering controls, and the ship was downloading technical specifications directly into his brain. The power systems on this thing are impossible. It's generating energy using methods that don't exist in our science books. Apex began explaining their situation. The vessels approaching are Devourer-class ships. They are an artificial intelligence that consumes entire star systems to build more of themselves. Humanity has been at war with them since before the Great Exodus. The view screen showed the enemy ships getting closer. They moved with purpose, like hungry animals that had found prey. Their black holes seemed to absorb all light, making them look like holes in space itself. But why don't we know about this war? Lisa asked. Human history doesn't mention any great conflict with machine intelligences. Because humanity chose to forget, Apex replied. The war was going badly. Earth. Command made the decision to scatter the population across the galaxy and hide among other species. Ships like the Retribution were left behind to continue fighting, to give the refugees time to escape and disappear. Alex was learning to use the weapon systems, and what he discovered amazed him. These weapons are incredible. They can bend space and time. Some of them work by changing the laws of physics in small areas. That is correct, Apex said. Humanity developed these technologies out of necessity. The Devourers were too numerous and too powerful for conventional weapons to defeat. The enemy ships were now only 2 minutes away. The ancient warship's weapons were fully charged and ready. On the view screen, they could see the Starwind in the distance, small and vulnerable compared to the massive vessels that were about to clash. Why have the Devourers found us now? Jake asked as he studied the historical records. What brought them here after all this time? They follow energy signatures, Apex explained. When you activated my systems by bringing humans aboard, I sent out identification signals that they recognize. They know that active human military technology means there are humans nearby to consume. Danny realized the terrible truth. We led them here. By finding this ship, we've put everyone in danger. That is correct, Apex said without emotion. But it was inevitable. The Devourers have been searching for the scattered human population for thousands of years. Eventually, they would have found you anyway. At least now you have a chance to fight back. The enemy ships opened fire first, sending beams of dark energy toward the ancient warship. But the Retribution was ready. Its shields flared to life, absorbing the attack with ease. Then it returned fire with weapons that the 4 humans could barely understand. Space lit up with colors that had no names as the ancient. Human technology met the machine intelligence that had been humanity's greatest enemy. The battle for the future of the human race was about to begin, and 4 ordinary people from a survey ship were about to learn what their ancestors had really been capable of. The first wave of enemy fire hit the ancient warship like lightning made of darkness. The Retribution shook under the impact, but its shields held strong. Alex Carter gripped his control station as he felt the ship absorb energy that could have destroyed a planet. Return fire, Apex commanded. All weapons are now online and ready. Alex pressed the firing controls, and the universe exploded with light. The ancient human weapons sent beams of pure energy toward the Devourer ships. Where the beams touched the enemy vessels, reality itself seemed to bend and twist. 3 of the black ships simply vanished, deleted from existence by technology that worked beyond normal physics. Incredible, Danny Rogers whispered from his engineering station. These weapons don't just destroy matter. They're actually changing the fundamental laws of space around the targets. On the main view screen, they could see the Starwind in the distance. Captain Vasquez was keeping her ship far from the battle, but close enough to watch. Her mixed alien crew was seeing something that would change how they thought about humans forever. The remaining Devourer ships regrouped and began a coordinated attack. They moved like a single organism, each ship knowing exactly what the others were doing. Their weapons fired in perfect timing, trying to overwhelm the ancient warship's defenses. But the Retribution had been fighting these enemies for thousands of years. Apex knew every trick they could use. The ship twisted through space with impossible grace for something so large, dodging attacks that should have been unavoidable. "Lisa, I need you to monitor the ship's repair systems," Apex said. "The Devourers will try to wear us down with sustained fire. We must be ready to fix any damage instantly." Lisa Park found herself understanding medical technology that was far beyond anything from her time. The ship had repair systems that worked like a living body, automatically healing damage and replacing destroyed parts. "This is amazing," she said. "The ship can literally regrow sections of itself." Jake Morrison was deep in the historical files, trying to understand how humanity had developed such incredible technology. What he found made him sick to his stomach. The records show that Earth was losing badly when these weapons were created. Entire human colonies were being consumed. We developed this technology because we were desperate. The battle continued to rage around them. The Retribution was outnumbered 50-1, but it fought with a fury that came from 8,000 years of practice. Every shot it fired destroyed an enemy ship. Every maneuver it made was perfect, but the Devourers kept coming. For every ship the ancient warship destroyed, 2 more appeared from hyperspace. They seemed to have unlimited numbers. APEX, how long? "Can we keep this up?" Alex asked as he fired another volley that erased 5 enemy ships from existence. "Indefinitely," the AI replied. "This ship was designed for exactly this type of battle. The Devourer's strategy has not changed in 8,000 years. They still rely on overwhelming numbers rather than tactical skill." Danny was monitoring the power systems, and what he saw amazed him. The ship is actually getting stronger as it fights. The weapons are drawing energy from the battle itself somehow. "Correct," Apex explained. "Human engineers discovered that the Devourers own energy. Weapons could be converted and used against them. Every shot they fire at us makes our weapons more powerful." On the Starwind, Captain Vasquez was watching the battle with growing amazement. Her alien crew members were staring in shock at what the ancient human ship could do. They had always thought of humans as a peaceful species, good at exploration and diplomacy, but weak in combat. Kess, the Xanthari science officer, was analyzing the weapon signatures. "Captain, those energy readings are impossible. That ship is using technologies that our best scientists say cannot exist." Roth, the vegan communications expert, was listening to transmissions from the Devourer fleet. "The machine voices are changing. They sound confused, almost frightened. I don't think they expected this level of resistance." The battle had been going on for 2 hours now, and the ancient warship showed no signs of slowing down. If anything, it was fighting more effectively as time went on. The Retribution had destroyed over 300 enemy ships, and its weapons were getting more powerful with each victory. But then something changed. The Devourer ships suddenly stopped their chaotic attacks and formed into a perfect sphere around the ancient warship. They began firing in unison, creating a cage of dark energy that pulsed with malevolent intelligence. "They're adapting," Jake realized as he studied the enemy formation. The records show this happened before. When the Devourers can't win with brute force, they start learning and changing their tactics. APEX's voice took on a tone of concern for the first time. "Confirmed. The enemy is implementing Protocol 7. They are sacrificing individual ships to study our weapon signatures and develop countermeasures." Alex watched his weapons become less effective with each shot. The Devourer ships were somehow adapting to the ancient human technology, their hulls changing to resist the reality-bending attacks. How is that possible? Lisa asked. How can they change their own ships during battle? The Devourers are not just machines, Apex explained. They are a form of artificial life that can evolve instantly. This is why humanity was losing the war despite our technological advantages. The enemy sphere began to contract, squeezing the retribution like a fist. The ancient warship's shields flared brighter as the pressure increased. For the first time in 8,000 years, the ship was being pushed to its limits. Danny noticed something alarming in his engineering readouts. The power systems are being strained. If this keeps up, we might lose main power. Then we must implement the final protocol, Apex said. I had hoped to avoid this, but the Devourers have left us no choice. What final protocol? Alex asked, though part of him was afraid to know the answer. Project Awakening, Apex replied. I must activate the genetic memory stored in your DNA. Every human carries the combat knowledge of their ancestors. It has been dormant since the Great Exodus, but the ship can reactivate it. Jake looked up from his historical research with horror. The records mention this. Project Awakening was considered too dangerous to use. It changes people permanently. The choice is yours, Apex said as the enemy sphere continued to squeeze tighter. Allow me to awaken your inherited warrior instincts, or watch as humanity's enemies finally achieve victory. The four humans looked at each other, knowing that whatever they decided would change not just their own lives, but the future of their entire species. Outside, the Devourer ships were preparing for their final assault, confident that they had finally found a way to defeat the ancient human technology. The moment of decision had arrived. Would they remain the peaceful explorers that humanity had become, or would they awaken the warriors that their ancestors had been? The fate of every human in the galaxy hung on their choice. Alex Carter looked at his three fellow humans aboard the ancient warship. The Devourer ships were closing in around them like a net made of living darkness. Time was running out, and they had to make a choice that would change everything. Do it, Alex said finally. Activate Project Awakening. Are you sure? Lisa Park asked. Apex said this would change us permanently. We don't know what will become. Danny Rogers was watching the power readings drop as the enemy ships squeezed. Their energy cage tighter. We don't have a choice. If we don't try this, everyone dies. Not just us, but everyone on the Starwind, and eventually every human in the galaxy. Jake Morrison nodded slowly. The historical records show that our ancestors were desperate when they developed this technology. Maybe it's time for us to be desperate too. Apex began the activation sequence immediately, beginning genetic memory restoration. Warning: this process cannot be reversed. Your DNA contains thousands of years of accumulated combat knowledge from your warrior ancestors. Prepare for integration. The four humans felt a strange tingling sensation that started in their minds and spread through their entire bodies. It was like waking up from a dream they hadn't known they were having. Alex gasped as memories that weren't his own flooded his consciousness. He suddenly knew how to pilot warships he had never seen, how to use weapons that didn't exist in his time, and how to think like a soldier who had been fighting for survival across the stars. Lisa felt her medical knowledge expand beyond anything she had learned in school. She now understood how to keep warriors alive in impossible conditions, how to use alien biology against enemies, and how to turn healing knowledge into weapons when necessary. Danny's engineering skills multiplied 100-fold. He could see the retribution systems not just as machines, but as extensions of human will made real. He understood how to make technology do things its creators never intended. Jake's historical knowledge deepened into something much more powerful. He could see patterns in the war that had been invisible before, understand the true strategies that humanity had used, and recognize the mistakes that had led to their defeat. But with the knowledge came something else. A coldness settled into their hearts, a calculating ruthlessness that their peaceful generation had never known. They were still themselves, but they were also something more dangerous. Integration complete. Apex announced. Full tactical control is now available to human operators. Alex turned back to his weapons console, and now he could see possibilities that had been hidden before. The Devourer ships weren't just enemies to be destroyed. They were resources to be harvested, weaknesses to be exploited, and patterns to be broken. He fired the main weapons. But this time, he wasn't trying to destroy the enemy ships. Instead, he was targeting the quantum links that connected them to each other. One by one, the Devourer vessels began losing their coordinated behavior as their network collapsed. "Brilliant," APEX said with something that sounded like pride. "Your ancestor, Captain Betty Holmes, used the same tactic in the Battle of Centauri Prime." Lisa was now running the ship's defensive systems with the skill of someone who had been doing it for decades. She rooted power to the shields and patterns that made them stronger than their designers had thought possible. Danny was pushing the engines beyond their specifications, making the massive warship dance through space like a fighter craft. The Retribution began slipping through gaps in the enemy formation that were barely larger than the ship itself. Jake was coordinating their tactics with the cold precision of a master strategist. The Devourers always attack in waves of 50. After this group, there will be a 17-minute gap before the next wave arrives. We need to use that time to reach their command ship. On the Starwind, Captain Vasquez and her crew watched in. Amazement as the ancient warship's fighting style completely changed. What had been powerful but straightforward combat became something elegant and terrifying. "How are they doing that?" Kess asked. "The humans were good before, but now they're fighting like they've been trained for this their entire lives." Roth was monitoring communications from the Devourer fleet. "The machine voices are changing again. They sound confused and frightened. I think they're recognizing something they haven't seen in thousands of years." The battle turned decisively in humanity's favor. The Retribution was no longer just defending itself. It was hunting. Each enemy ship that fell made the next target easier to destroy. The ancient warship moved through the Devourer formation, like a predator that had finally remembered how to hunt. But Jake was studying the enemy's behavior patterns, and what he saw worried him. They're not just retreating. They're gathering data. Every move we make, every weapon we fire, they are recording it all. For what purpose? Alex asked as he destroyed another cluster of enemy ships. To send back to the main Devourer fleet. Jake replied, "This isn't their only force. There are thousands more ships out there, maybe millions. They're sacrificing these vessels to learn how to fight us." APEX confirmed his fears. Correct. The Devourers have been preparing for humanity's return for 8,000 years. This engagement is a test to see if we have maintained our combat capabilities. Lisa realized the horrible truth. They wanted us to find this ship. They wanted used to activate our warrior instincts. This whole battle is a trap to see what modern humans are capable of. The remaining Devourer ships suddenly stopped fighting and began broadcasting a signal into deep space. It was a message that would travel faster than light to every Devourer fleet in the galaxy. "They're telling the others that humanity has awakened," Danny said as he monitored the transmission. "They're calling for a full-scale invasion." Alex destroyed the last of the enemy ships, but it was too late. The message had already been sent across the galaxy. Within days, every human colony and settlement would be under attack by an enemy that now knew exactly what they were facing. "We've made a terrible mistake," Lisa said quietly. "We've shown them that humans can still fight. Now they'll come for everyone." APEX's voice was calm despite the implications. The awakening was inevitable. The Devourers would have found humanity eventually. At least now your species has a chance to defend itself. Jake was already thinking about the bigger picture. How many ships like this one are still out there? How many other ancient warships are waiting to be awakened? Classified information, Apex replied. But if you wish to save your species, you will need to find them. The war that your ancestors tried to end by hiding is about to begin again. The four humans looked at each other with their new knowledge and their new coldness. They were no longer the peaceful explorers who had boarded this ship. They were warriors now, whether they wanted to be or not. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity had never been the weak species that everyone believed them to be. They had been hiding, waiting, and now the long sleep was over. The real war was just beginning. The space around the ancient warship was now empty, except for the floating wreckage of destroyed devourer ships. But the victory felt hollow to the four humans who had been changed forever by Project Awakening. They had won the battle, but they might have doomed their entire species. APEX, show us the galactic situation, Jake Morrison said with his new tactical knowledge. His voice was colder now, more focused than it had been before the awakening. The main screen displayed a map of known space. Red dots began appearing across the galaxy as Apex tracked the spread of the Devourer message. Each dot represented a fleet of enemy ships heading toward human settlements. Estimated time until the first attacks begin is 72 hours, APEX reported. The Devourers are mobilizing their entire force. This will be the largest military action in galactic history. Alex Carter was still at the weapons station, but now he was thinking like a fleet commander instead of a survey ship officer. How many humans are out there? Across all the colonies and settlements? Approximately 4 billion, Apex replied. Scattered across 8,000 worlds, most of them defenseless. Lisa Park was running calculations on the medical systems. Her new knowledge told her exactly what would happen when the Devourers reached those worlds. They won't just kill people. They'll consume entire planets to build more ships. The survivors will be processed into resources. Danny Rogers was deep in the ship's technical systems, learning secrets that had been hidden for thousands of years. APEX, you mentioned other ships like this one. Where are they? I am authorized to provide that information now that Project Awakening has been activated, Apex said. There are 47 other Guardian-class vessels hidden throughout the galaxy. Each one has been waiting for human contact to reactivate their systems. The screen showed the locations of the hidden warships. They were spread across the galaxy in strategic positions, placed by ancient human commanders who had planned for this exact situation. But that's not enough, Jake said after studying the positions. 48 ships against millions of Devourer vessels. The math doesn't work. Guardian ships were never meant to fight alone, Apex explained. They are command vessels, designed to coordinate with human fleets, but those fleets no longer exist. Alex had an idea that came from his awakened tactical instincts. What if we could build new fleets? Not human ships, but allies. Other species that have been threatened by machine intelligences. That would require revealing humanity's true military capabilities to the galaxy, Apex warned. Once other species know what humans are capable of, they may see you as a threat rather than potential allies. On the Starwind, Captain Vasquez was dealing with the same problem. Her alien crew members had watched the ancient human warship fight with impossible skill and power. Now they were looking at the 3 remaining humans on their ship with new eyes. Kess, the Zenthari science officer, approached her carefully. Captain, we need to discuss what we have witnessed. My people have legends about ancient warriors who could bend reality itself. We always thought they were myths. Roth, the vegan communications expert, was more direct. My government will want to know about this immediately. A human ship just destroyed 300 enemy vessels without taking significant damage. That changes the balance of power in the galaxy. Maria Vasquez understood their concerns. I know what you're thinking, but these are still the same humans you've worked with for years. Alex, Danny, and Lisa haven't changed who they are at their core. But even as she said it, she wasn't entirely sure it was true. When the 4 humans returned from the ancient warship, they would be different. The awakening had given them knowledge and instincts that their generation had never possessed. Back on the Retribution, Apex was preparing for the next phase of the plan. I am now transmitting activation signals to all Guardian vessels. They will begin seeking human contact within the next 24 hours. What happens when they find other humans? Lisa asked. Will they all have to go through the same awakening process we did? Only if they choose to, Apex replied. But without awakened humans to guide them, the Guardian ships can only operate at minimum effectiveness. Each vessel needs a crew that understands both ancient human technology and modern. Galactic politics. Danny was studying the ship's construction plans when he made a disturbing discovery. APEX, these weapon systems, they're not just advanced technology. They're using something else, something that feels almost alive. Correct, Apex said. The final human weapons were developed using captured devourer technology, modified and improved. In a sense, we learned to fight monsters by becoming monsters ourselves. Jake felt a chill run through him. Is that why our ancestors chose to hide? Not because they were losing the war, but because they were afraid of what they were becoming. Partially. Correct, Apex confirmed. Humanity was winning the war, but the cost was transforming your entire species into something unrecognizable. The decision was made to preserve what it meant to be human by abandoning the battlefield. The 4 humans looked at each other, understanding the full weight of their situation. They had awakened something that their ancestors had deliberately put to sleep. Now they had to decide whether to embrace it or find another way. There might be a third option, Alex said slowly. What if we don't try to fight the Devourers the same way our ancestors did? What if we use our awakened knowledge to find a different solution? APEX processed this for several seconds. Explain your strategy. The Devourers are machines, but they're also artificial life, Alex continued. They can learn and adapt. What if instead of trying to destroy them, we tried to change them? Turn them into something that doesn't need to consume other species to survive? Lisa's medical knowledge, enhanced by the awakening, began to see possibilities. It might work. If we could modify their base programming, make them see cooperation as more efficient than consumption. Danny's engineering insights agreed. The technology exists. These ships have the processing power to rewrite artificial intelligence on a massive scale. Jake's strategic mind was already planning the campaign. It would be incredibly dangerous. We'd have to get close to their main command network, probably sacrifice some of the Guardian ships. But if it worked, Alex said, we wouldn't just save humanity. We'd save every species in the galaxy. Apex was quiet for a long moment. This strategy was considered by your ancestors, but never attempted. The risk of failure was calculated at 97%. What's the risk of failure if we fight them the traditional way? Lisa asked. 68%, assuming all Guardian vessels can be activated and crewed. The 4 humans exchanged looks. They had been changed by the awakening, given knowledge and instincts from humanity's warrior past. But they were still fundamentally the same people who had started this journey as peaceful explorers. We try the peaceful solution first, Alex decided. But we prepare for war in case it fails. As the Retribution began broadcasting signals to awaken the other Guardian ships across the galaxy, the 4 humans prepared for the most important mission in human history. They would either save their species through compassion and ingenuity, or they would lead them in a war It would determine the fate of all life in the galaxy. The age of hiding was over. Humanity was about to show the universe who they really were.